Here's the student database set up with classes, students and teachers. So I'm now going to import from Excel the NZQA standards, which are downloaded from Moodle. NZQA standards, open, OK, and tick the box that says first row contains column headings, because it does. And those field types look largely correct for now. Primary key. I'm going to choose to make the standard number the primary key because it is the unique identifier for each standard. It makes sense to do that. And import to table TBL standards. Finish. So I now have TBL standards. Looks like that. It's not a good thing normally to have the ID, the primary key, as a field that's like halfway through the table. So if we just hop in design view and you can just click and then drag up to here. Also, I like standard ID. ID is better for a primary key. It makes it clearer that it is the unique identifier in that particular case. So that's good. Cool, just double check it looks like what I'd expect. It certainly does. So now I want to have some assessments where students do assessments. So I'm going to create a table to record that information. TBL assessments. Okay. Now TBL assessments, assessment ID is a good thing to have. So a unique identifier for every assessment that is sat by a student. And I'm going to want to know which student is sitting the assessment. I'm going to know which standard they are doing. I'm going to know what date it's sat on maybe, and the grade, I don't know, other stuff. So the student ID is going to be a number, and the standard ID is also going to be a number. That will do for now. So I'll be able to type directly into these fields with the with an ID if I knew it and a standard ID if I knew it, and put that other data in. Before I do that though, I'm just going to check in the relationships diagram, include that the standards table and the assessments table, and let's make these all match up. So I'm going to have an assessment which is sat by students. So I'm going to drag student ID to student ID here. I'm hoping to get an error message. Nope, I didn't. Never mind. If you do get an error message, it's quite likely to do with the types. Show you what I mean by that. So down in the students table right here, the student ID is number long integer. If you've got a long integer here, then it also in the assessments table, student ID also needs to be a long integer, and it is for mine, so that's good news. But it might not be for yours, and if you get an error message, that's quite likely to be what the problem is. So student ID, standard ID, tick, tick, tick. I wonder if this will give the error message. Yay, it did. So that's probably the problem. So let's just quickly check in the standards table, design view, standard ID is a double, and I'm fairly certain it will be a long integer in that assessments table. Let's just double check. Standard ID is a long integer. So what I'm going to do is the standards doesn't need to be a double because that allows for decimal, and none of our standard numbers are ever going to be decimal. So the sensible thing is to actually change that to being a long integer as well. And it's complaining because it might lose some decimalness, but that's definitely not going to happen. We know that from what we've seen. So save that, close that, and now hopefully standard ID, tick tick tick, happy happy. So I've got assessments being sat by students, standards being sat by students, and each time that happens that's an assessment. Close and save that. So now I just need to make sure I've got lookups in place. So in the assessments table in design view, I'm going to go to the lookup here. It's going to be a combo box, and the row source is going to come from the students table because I'm looking at student ID. Bound column 1, yep, we know that the first column is that. Column count 2, and do that usual thing, column widths of 0 for the first one, and actually I'm just going to put 0 and then the rest of it does a default. have a little look at how that comes out. Student ID, drop down, and I've got the last name. You know what? I might even say bound column count 3. How does that look? And then when I do a drop down here, you actually see the first name and the last name, so that's better. Might look into sorting those alphabetically as well when I do the final one. So that's great, and the standard ID as well. I'll also do a combo for that. Combo and row source is the standards, is table standards. Bound column is 1. I moved it across just to make sure it did that. Column count 2. Don't want to see the. Actually, you know, I do want to see the first one. I'm going to do column count 2, and I want to see the actual ID because that's a standard number. I think that would be a useful thing to have in this case. So I've got here the number and it's actually the topic. You know what I might do? Just close that down, save changes, and in the standards in design view, just have the actual title as the second thing that comes through. Sometimes, yeah, that's good. So now in assessments table, I can go into design view here, and actually I don't need to go into design view. This should just be right here, shouldn't it? Yep. So I've got the number, and then I've got the actual title of it there. So now, having done all of that, it's easy peasy lemon squeezy to make a form. Click that. So now I can say in form view, choose a student, random student. Scott Bowers is going to do a demonstrating understanding of something or other, and I didn't remember to set that as a date field. Never mind. I'll give him an excellence though. So yeah, obviously there's a little bit more work to do, but that's the guts of it sorted at that point. So I will save that as FRM assessments. And the other thing that I have suggested that you could do today is if I go to students and make a form from that, not that button, I was expecting to see the assessments that they're doing down here. Oh well. Let's just check that relationships view. So no. Database tools, relationships, students doing assessments. Yeah, that should come through. One more time. Maybe I didn't save that layout. I don't know. So table students, create a form. No, never mind. Anyway, so that's what you need to get on with and make sure you've got done.